It's your guide, Nora Vale, documenting the space between action and consequence. In today's story, there is a measurable distance between predator and prey. It can be mapped, tracked in prints, marked by fence lines and blood trails. Most people believe that distance protects them. They believe the field begins where safety ends. They are incorrect. Tonight's subject is a hunter who isolated himself in a remote cabin for 7 days. He harvested a deer that exhibited abnormal motor function. He consumed the meat. Within 48 hours, symptoms appeared: disorientation, paranoia, auditory misinterpretation, visual distortion. By the time help arrived, the boundary between threat and familiarity had collapsed. This episode is not about superstition. It is about perception under stress. It is about contagion, biological or otherwise. And it is about what happens when the mind begins to classify a friend as prey. You are listening to Murderous Tongues Radio, Episode 23, At the Edge of the Field. Proceed carefully.
I remember the last breath I ever took. Not the hunter's, mine. Cold air, open field, snow in the long grass where it shouldn't have been yet. The world held its lungs full. My herd's hooves clicked through frozen stalks. A truck door slammed far off. The sound spooked the younger ones. Not me. I had learned that some thunder never reaches you. The crack that took me did. Light, impact. The sky turned sideways. The field rose up, tender and wrong in a way the living never see. My legs forgot how to be legs. The smell of my own blood came hot and metallic through the cold. I saw the hunter walking toward me with his bright orange shoulders and his careful boots and his open, practiced hands. He put one hand on my neck when he was sure I was done. It was almost a blessing. "You're a good buck," he said. "Big boy. Thank you." That is the last full sky I ever saw. Now I see one room. Cabin air. Pine walls. A stone fireplace with a crack running through its left side like a crooked smile. A table with 2 chairs. A narrow bed. A door with a view of it that has not changed in years. I hang above the mantle, eyes glass, skin stretched and lacquered. My antlers have become decoration. My face has become a trophy. My body went to stew. They gave me a place of honor in the cabin the hunter shares with his friend. A place men put their pride where it can look back at them. I do not sleep. I do not blink. I do not forget. I watch. The week it began, winter was still choosing which way it wanted to fall. Days like bone, nights like smoke. The cabin roof wore frost the way I once wore velvet. The truck came first. I heard it long before I saw it, growling up the 2-track that leads to the clearing. Then light through the window, headlights sweeping the room, catching my eyes and making them flare white for a heartbeat. The hunter came in with a duffel bag and a cooler and 3 grocery sacks. His friend brought the rest, grumbling, cursing in a friendly way about the cold. "You sure you're okay out here all week?" the friend asked, stomping his boots by the door. "Signal's trash. If you break your damn ankle, I am not dragging you 3 miles to the truck." The hunter laughed. He shrugged the way men do when they're trying to show they are not afraid of being alone. "That's the point," he said. "Look at it, man. No neighbors, no highway, just trees. I need to clear my head." The friend looked at me. Most people do. My glass eyes siphoned their gaze. He pointed with his chin. "You got company," he said. "He'll keep an eye on you." The hunter glanced up at me and smiled, small and fond. "He's seen worse," he said. He was right. They unloaded the rest, food into the tiny fridge, rifles into the corner, beer into the cooler, curses and jokes into the air. The cabin warmed under their voices like a dog leaning into a hand. Later, when the sun tilted away and the friend had to leave, they stood in the doorway in a rush of cold. "I'll be back Saturday," the friend said. "You text me if you get lonely, all right? I'll ignore it, but you can try." The hunter snorted. "Go home, Tom," he said. "Kiss your kids. I'll shoot a buck and write my resignation letter. This place is therapy that doesn't bill." "Yeah, well, don't talk to the deer," Tom said, nodding at me. "It's weird when you write about it later." He clapped the hunter on the shoulder and left. The truck dwindled into the trees. Engine, then taillights, then nothing. Silence folded around the cabin. Deep, familiar. We knew each other. The hunter shut the door. Stood in the middle of the room a moment, listening to the kind of quiet that makes people aware of their own bones. "Just us, big guy," he said to me. "Just for a week." He set his rifle by the door. He put his hands to the firewood. He made the room warmer on purpose this time. I watched. The next morning, he went to the edge of the field. I know that place by absence and memory. I can't see it from the cabin. The window faces the opposite direction, toward the black wall of pines. But the field is still in me. The give of its frozen grass, the clean sight lines, the way sound travels just a little farther there. It exists on the inside of my glass eyes as much as the outside. He left at dawn with orange on his shoulders, rifle in his hand, breath in small clouds. "Quick hike," he told the air. "Check the prints. See what is moving." The door shut behind him. The cabin settled. The fire sighed. Somewhere in the walls, a mouse reviewed its kingdom. For a while, there was only the small domestic music of an empty room. Wood creaking. The wind touching eaves. A branch ticking the window like a fingernail. Then a shot. One crack. Far, but clear. Rifle, not a tree splitting, not a branch snapping. Echo, then quiet. He came back dragging a deer. At first, in the smear of distance through the window, I thought it was an ordinary story. Hunter and carcass, the old exchange. But as they drew closer, something in the slack way the animal's legs trailed over the snow made my empty nerves prickle. Its neck lolled too far. Its jaw gaped wrong. Even dead, its body remembered being unsteady. He hauled it up onto the porch with a grunt and kicked the door open with one heel. "Jesus," he muttered. "Something wasn't right with you out there, was it?" He propped the deer just inside the doorway, on a tarp he'd spread earlier. The dead animal stared up at me. Its eyes were not glass, but they might as well have been. Whatever had driven them was long gone. "This one was sick," he said, talking as he shrugged out of his pack, unslung his rifle, stripped off his gloves. "You should have seen it, big guy. Hind legs, like it was trying to remember how to walk. Foam on its muzzle, kept snapping at the air." He mimed it. "It came right at me. Didn't even spook." He went quiet then, for a breath or two, like he was listening to what he had just said. He shook it off. Humans are good at that. "Meat's meat," he decided. "We'll trim the bad. The rest goes in the freezer. Waste is worse than whatever that was." He set to work. He skinned. He carved. He hummed under his breath, some tuneless chain of notes that held his hands steady. The room filled with the hot copper scent of opened body. I remembered my own. I remembered the field. I remembered the weight of his palm on my throat, grateful and apologizing. He worked clean, careful. This was not arrogance, it was ritual. Later, he cooked a pan of backstrap with butter and onions on the tiny gas stove, the cabin full of smoke that made his eyes water and his stomach growl. He set his plate on the table beneath me. He raised a fork to me in a half salute. "To you," he said, "and to the one that forgot it was a deer." He ate. The first night he slept, he tossed a little. Everyone does, alone in the dark. He got up twice to check the lock on the door, once to throw more wood on the fire. He glanced up at me each time, like expecting me to comment, and then remembering I couldn't. "Don't know why I'm jumpy," he muttered after the second circuit. "It's just wind." It was not just wind. Sometime past midnight, something brushed the cabin. Not a branch. Branches scrape and knock. This sound was a long, slow slide along the far wall, as if a large body were leaning and testing. Wood creaked. Nails complained softly in their holes. The hunter sat up in the dark. He listened. The room breathed. "Just a tree," he said, to himself, to me, to the part of his brain that had grown up in places with streetlights. He lay back down, rolled onto his side so he could watch the door, just in case. He slept again in fits. I watched the door. Nothing opened it. For that night, that was enough. On the second day, his stomach turned on him. He fried more meat for breakfast, ate 3 bites, sat looking at the fourth, chewing like it disagreed with him. "Come on," he told it. "Don't be dramatic." He swallowed, put the fork down, didn't reach for it again. He went to the field that afternoon, but walked slower. He came back sooner. His face had gone a chalky version of itself, sweat shining at his hairline despite the cold. "Think I'm coming down with something," he said, dropping a pair of rabbits on the counter as if they had done this to him. He drank water. He sat in the chair under me and stared at the wood grain on the table until it blurred. Dusk came early. The sky folded itself gray and then darker. The fire popped. The cabin settled. He did not turn on the overhead light, just the lamp on the side table and the candle he'd found in the cupboard, a stub of wax that had seen blackouts in another town. He lit it and set it on the mantle beside me. The flame warped in my glass eyes, making the room double and sway. He looked up at me and laughed once, dry and thin. "You ever get the feeling you brought something home you shouldn't?" he asked. I had no voice then, only the stare he'd given me. It was all I had to offer him. He rubbed his face with both hands. His fingers trembled. Outside, something walked past the cabin. Heavy, slow. Not quite on 4 legs, not quite on 2. The weight of it made the floor under the hearth vibrate in the slightest way, as if acknowledging a cousin. The hunter froze. "Moose," he whispered, hopefully. The steps stopped by the window. We both looked at the glass. The candle flickered. The room breathed. On the other side of the thin pane, the night was a sheet of black. Then 2 washed-out ovals appeared. Too high for a man's eyes, too forward for a deer's. They were not lights. They were reflections. Or they were eyes. Or they were the cabin's old, warped glass catching its own fear and showing it to us. They did not blink. His breath hitched. "Okay," he said, voice hushed, like he'd walked into the middle of a service. "Okay, that's a trick of the light." He stood up slow. The eyes stayed where they were. He took one step toward the window. The eyes vanished. No movement, no turn, no fall. Just gone, like someone had pinched them out between finger and thumb. He laughed too loud. "Just nerves," he said. "Too much coffee, not enough people." He made another circuit of the cabin, checked the door, checked his rifle, checked the meat in the pan as if it might answer for something. He glanced up at me. "You saw that, though," he said. "Didn't you?" I had seen nothing but reflection and fear. But even if I'd had a voice then, I would not have lied for his comfort. He waited another beat, listening to an answer that wasn't there. "Right," he said. "Talk to the deer. That's a healthy sign." He blew out the candle and went to bed. I watched the door until the dark forgot it had corners. By the third day, the sickness had settled into him like an old friend. He moved slow. He muttered to himself. He would start a task, sharpening a knife, folding his spare clothes, hanging his wet socks by the fire, then stand staring at the wall as if someone had just asked him a question he didn't know how to answer. His hands shook. His skin looked off, too flush, then too pale. His eyes had gone glassy in a way that made them look like mine. He stopped eating the deer meat. The smell of it made him gag. He wrapped the remaining cuts in butcher paper and shoved them into the tiny cabin freezer with a kind of flinch, as if putting them out of sight might unmake them. Something had to be wrong with that thing, he told the empty room. I know better. I know better than to eat anything that walks like that. He sat in the chair under me, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. My dad always said, "If you see a deer that moves like a puppet, leave it for the buzzards," he said. I shot it anyway. I ate it anyway. Dumb. He lifted his head, looked up at me. "You wouldn't have done that, huh?" he said. "You boys know when not to graze." His voice cracked on the last word. It wasn't from emotion. It was from something raw. Nerves misfiring, muscles tightening wrong. A frayed chord trying to play the same note too many times. He blinked, slow. "You know this isn't normal, right?" he asked. "You see enough seasons up there. You know when something's off." I stared back, as I had stared at 1,000 words that were never meant for me. Inside my own silence, something shifted. You cannot hang a body on a wall and expect it to stay only decoration forever. Memory clings. Fields cling. The last moments of impact and breath and sky cling. The sickness in him brushed against the old wound where the bullet had gone in through my ribs and out through my life. Something in that contact dragged my awareness closer to his. I still had no voice, but I could feel the door between us thin. That night, the thing outside came closer. The storm arrived with the dark. Wind shouldered the cabin from all sides, testing it the way the hunter had tested the deer's body, looking for weak seams. Snow struck the window in handfuls. Trees groaned. Somewhere far off, a branch succumbed to gravity. Inside, the hunter paced. He'd given up trying to sleep. His body was shaking too hard for rest. His thoughts stuttered. He kept returning to the same spots. The window, the door, the stove, my mantle. As if they were beads on a rosary, and he had forgotten the prayer, but not the motion. "You're getting in my head," he told the empty place by the door. "You and that thing in the field." He stopped beneath me, looked up. "You ever see anything like that?" he asked. "Out there? Before I got you?" Memories answered him, even if I could not. I remembered rutting seasons and coyotes and men in blaze orange. I remembered predators and parasites and the quiet death under snow. I remembered deer that walked wrong, heads too low, hind legs stumbling, eyes dull with a sickness that traveled not like fire, but like a thought. We had known to keep away. He had not. The wind rose. The cabin walls flexed. The fire in the stove went to coals and glowed like an eye watching its own breath. Then came the scrape at the door. Slow, as if something were standing just outside and trailing the edge of its hoof, its hand, its idea of a limb, up and down the wood. Testing, listening to the sound, enjoying it. The hunter froze. The sound went away. He moved to the window and peered out through the frost. His breath fogged the glass. He wiped it with the sleeve of his sweater and looked again. I could not see what he saw. I saw his eyes change. They widened. They focused on something too high, too close. He swore under his breath. "No," he whispered. "You're dead. I saw you drop." He stepped back from the glass like it had tried to kiss him. He reached for his rifle. "You stay outside," he called, voice strained. "You hear me? You stay outside." The cabin said nothing. The wind laughed or cried. Hard to tell. He backed up until his shoulders hit the chimney stone beneath me. He slid down until he was sitting on the hearth, rifle across his lap, staring at the door. Minutes burned, or hours. The candle stub on the mantle had long since given up. Only the embers from the stove painted the room in red and shadow. His head tipped back against the stone. His muscles relaxed in increments. The rifle slid a little in his grip. His gaze drifted up to meet mine. "You'd tell me if it was real, right?" he asked, voice slurring with exhaustion. "You'd tell me if I was just sick." And something in me, pressed long enough, finally answered. The first sound I made was not a word. It was a crack. Not loud. A tiny sound of strain, wood drying, hide shifting, a nail reconsidering its place. Dust sifted from the top of the mantle to the stone. His eyes widened. He stared up at me, fully awake now. "Say something again," he whispered. The next sound had more shape. It pushed through the dry spaces where my living throat had once been, through lacquer and stuffing and the small patient rot in the beam behind my mount. It hurt. We were both well acquainted with pain. "It is real," I said. The voice came out hoarse, splintered, as if someone were dragging air through a board full of nails. My jaw did not move. My lips stayed fixed in the eternal, surprised snarl the taxidermist had chosen for me. But the sound was mine. The hunter flinched so hard the rifle nearly fell from his lap. "Jesus," he gasped. Okay, I am too far gone." He closed his eyes, opened them again. I did not vanish. "I am nailed to this wall," I said, each word dragged up from somewhere deep in the grain. "I see this room. I feel the field. I know what hunts and what is hunted. I paused. The effort of speaking was like dragging my own body uphill through snow I could not feel. "That thing," I said, "outside. It is not one of mine." He licked his lips. His breath made small clouds in the cooling air. You weren't talking before," he said. "You've been hanging there for years. Why now?" "You opened something," I said, "with what you shot, and with what you ate." He swallowed. His throat worked around a taste that wasn't there. "I got sick from the meat," he said. "Yes," I said. "And from the thing inside the meat. And from the fear that came after." He laughed, a startled high sound that did not belong in a grown man's chest. "I'm arguing with my own taxidermy," he said. "Tom is never going to believe this." "You are not arguing," I said. "You are listening. You should continue." He stared up at me, pupils too wide. "What is it?" he asked. "Out there." I considered, in the slow way of wood and bone. "There are sicknesses that live in bodies," I said. "Worms, rot, things that eat from the inside out. There are sicknesses that live in minds, worry, rage, the idea that you can walk into the field and never pay for it." He frowned. Sweat slid down near his ear. "Yeah," he said. "I know all that. This is something else." "Yes," I said. "Some hungers learn to walk." The wind slapped the side of the cabin, punctuating the words. He tightened his grip on the rifle. "Is it here because of me?" he asked. "It was here before you," I said. "You brought it closer." He shut his eyes, hard, like maybe he could squeeze me back into silence. When he opened them, I was still there, still nailed, still talking. This is some kind of fever dream," he whispered. "Mad deer disease, cabin fever, something. My brain's Swiss cheese, and you're the mouse chewing through it." "I am dead," I said. "Not mad. The dead see the shape of things more clearly than the living. You have worn a path between yourself and that deer that forgot it was a deer. Something uses it." He let his head rest against the stone again. His gaze drifted to the door. "It was right up at the glass," he said. "Tonight. Those eyes, like pits, like holes burned in a picture." He shuddered. "That was not how we look," I said. "That is how a hole looks when it learns to stare." He laughed again, a little weaker. I don't know how to fight that," he said. I did not answer right away. I had never fought anything. I had run. I had watched. I had died. "You do not open the door," I said at last. "You do not feed it again." He nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, that makes sense." We sat like that for a while, him on the hearth, me above it, the storm outside, something wrong pressing up against the edges of the clearing and testing the grain of the trees. His eyes drooped. His grip on the rifle loosened. "Talk to me," he murmured. "Keep talking. If you stop, I'll think I imagined you." "What shall I say?" I asked. "Anything," he said. "Tell me about the field." So I did. I told him about frost on grass, about the way hooves feel when they break through a thin crust and find mud still warm underneath, about the heat of other bodies in winter when bedding down, about Coyote's eyes at the tree line, about the sound of his father's voice the first time he took a shot at us and missed, and laughed about it. I told him about the day I died, the white of his breath, the way his gloved hand had patted my ruined neck like saying grace, the way he had looked small for a moment in the middle of all that space. As I spoke, my voice scraped less. The words came a little easier, as if paths were being worn through the wood. He listened. Sometimes he smiled, faintly in the dark. "Dad used to say the field started where the safe world ended," he said. "Once you cross the fence, you're not in charge anymore." "Yes," I said. "You all stand at the edge of something and pretend the line is yours. It is not. It belongs to anything patient enough to wait." His eyelids drooped. His head lolled. His hand slid off the rifle. "Don't let me fall asleep," he whispered. I did not know how to keep a man from the sleep his body demanded, so I kept talking. Eventually, he slept anyway. Outside, something walked the length of the cabin wall again. It paused beneath the window, pressed, tested, found the door still shut. For that night, that was enough. By the fourth day, he was deep in it. He moved like someone wearing clothes that weren't his size anymore. His thoughts came out in broken strings when he spoke at all. He drank water and stared at nothing, and flinched at shadows that weren't there. He talked to me constantly now. Sometimes I answered, sometimes I didn't. Not out of malice, out of exhaustion. Being dead does not mean being infinite. It just means you remember everything. The sickness in him had chewed holes in the weave of his mind. Through those holes, things slipped. Old fears, old griefs, new shapes made from both. He kept seeing the deer that did not belong to its own body. At the window, at the edge of the trees. One time, standing right where the light from the stove spilled onto the floor. Hooves just outside it, as if unwilling to step into warmth. I saw none of this. I saw him. His eyes would lock onto a corner or a pane of glass. His breathing would change. His hand would twitch toward the rifle. "There," he'd hiss. "You see it? You see it?" "No," I would say. "I see only you." "That's worse," he'd answer. Once, near dusk, he pressed his palm flat against the wall beneath me. "What if it's already in here?" he asked. "What if it doesn't need the door?" He looked up at me, wanting an answer that could hold him. "There is only so much room in one cabin," I said. "You, me, your fear, its hunger. Something will be pushed out." He swallowed. "Which?" he asked. "That depends," I said. "On what?" he demanded. "On who opens what," I said. He started to laugh, then choked on it. "You're a lot of help, you know that?" he said. "I was shot because I stepped into the open," I said. "My advice is limited, but sincere." He actually smiled at that. Briefly. Then he went back to watching the door. By the fifth night, the weather had worsened, and so had he. Snow piled against the porch and halfway up the door. Wind screamed around the corners like something with lungs. The world beyond the cabin shrank to a tight circle of white and gray and threat. Inside, he shook with a fever that wasn't entirely from any illness a doctor could chart. He'd stopped checking his phone days ago. The battery had died in the cold, and he'd never gotten around to charging it from the small solar bank in the window. He did not eat. He barely drank. He paced until his legs gave out and then sat, rifle across his knees, staring at the door with the hollow focus of prey that thinks it's a predator. "Tom's coming," he muttered. "Tom's coming Saturday. Truck, lights, door. Don't open the door." He looked up at me. "If it knocks," he said, "how do I know it's him?" The sickness had taken his sense of measure. Everything now weighed the same. Friend, foe, wind, deer, hunger. "You do not," I said. "You choose." He closed his eyes, pressed the heels of his hands into them until little sparks danced behind his lids. "That's what I was afraid of," he whispered. It came again then, the scrape at the door. Slow, deliberate, up and down the wood, testing. His head snapped up, his fingers whitened on the rifle. "Get away!" he shouted, voice cracking. "You hear me? Get away from here!" The scraping stopped. A moment later, there was a sound neither of us had heard before. 3 knocks, distinct. Knuckles, or something like them, on wood. His breath hitched. "Tom?" he called. Silence. The wind filled in around the door like plaster. He licked dry lips. "Tom, that you?" He tried again. Still nothing. He looked up at me, wild-eyed. "Say something," he begged. "I hear only the knocks," I said, "not the name behind them." He snarled a curse. Lightning flared somewhere inside his frayed mind. He stood up so quickly, the chair skittered back and toppled. I'm not dying in here," he said. "Whatever that is, it's not going to come through my door." He leveled the rifle at the wood. "If you're out there," he shouted, "you picked the wrong cabin." The third knock came again. Closer, it seemed. Lower. More like a hand than a hoof. He pulled the trigger. The sound swallowed the room. The recoil slammed into his shoulder. Splinters flew from the inside of the door where the bullet tore through. Smoke coiled in front of the barrel. For a heartbeat, he looked triumphant. Then, from outside, through the new hole in the wood, came a sound that was not an animal's and not the wind. A man, cursing. "What the? Hey! It's me! What the hell are you doing, you idiot?" Tom. The friend. His voice cut through the storm like a familiar song. Everything in the hunter's face convulsed at once. Relief. Horror. Confusion. The shudder of someone whose world has just been jerked into a new, worse shape. "Tom?" he croaked. "Yes, Tom, you lunatic," the voice shouted from the other side. "You just shot at me and put a hole in the fucking door. Are you okay? Open up!" The hunter staggered back from the entry, the rifle lowering a fraction, then rising again as another thought crept in. "What if it's not him?" he whispered. "What if it learned his voice?" He looked up at me, pleading. "Is it him?" he demanded. "You tell me if it's him." I felt for something beyond the door. for the weight of footsteps on the porch, for the familiar cadence of the friends' laughter that had bounced off these walls so many times before. The sickness in the hunter hissed and shifted, trying to cloak everything in doubt. "I hear his boots," I said. "I smell the cold on his coat. I hear his heart. It is fast. It is afraid. It is human." The hunter's eyes filled with tears he didn't seem to feel. "Then why?" he started. The thing that had been walking around the cabin, that had been staring through the glass, that had been scraping at the wood, pressed against his mind then, hard. It showed him the window, the eyes, the wrong height, the hole-like blackness. It borrowed Tom's outline and draped itself over that memory. He saw antlers where there were none, hooves where boots were, a long, wrong jaw stretching where his friend's mouth was opening to speak again. "Open the door! Are you sick? Are you hurt? I tried texting and calling you. Answer me!" The hunter flung the bolt. He yanked the door open, rifle jerking wide. From my place above the mantle, I saw only the swing of wood, the burst of cold air, the shape of a man on the porch framed in blowing snow. I heard Tom's startled shout. I saw the muzzle flash. I heard the bullet tear plaster from the far wall instead of flesh. He missed. The sickness had made his aim as unsteady as the deer's hind legs in the field. Tom tackled him. The rifle went off again, wild. A lamp shattered. The cabin filled with light, and then less of it. They hit the floor hard. Bodies, boots, grunting curses. "What is wrong with you?" Tom shouted, wrestling the barrel away. "It's me! It's me, you idiot! Get off me! Get off! Get off! It's in your skin! It's..." I watched two men fight in the space where I had watched them drink beer and play cards. I watched fear take them in different directions. The rifle's stock cracked against the edge of the hearth. It skidded across the floor, out of reach. For a moment, they froze, both realizing the gun was no longer between them. Tom was breathing hard. His face was a mix of fury and panic. "You're burning up," he said. "You're sick. Jesus, your eyes." He reached for his friend's shoulder. The hunter shrank back from his touch like it was fire. "Don't," he said. "Don't. You're not you." He scrambled for the knife on his belt. Tom saw the motion and grabbed his wrist. Hey, easy," he said. "It's me. Look at me. Stay with me, okay? We're going to get you out of here. You're not thinking straight." He was right. The sickness had chewed through the hunter's sense of straight a long time ago. For a moment, there was a balance, a seesaw of weight between trust and terror. Then something outside slammed into the side of the cabin. Hard. The walls shuddered. A pan rattled on its hook. Snow slid from the roof in a thick, heavy sheet. Both men flinched. "Did you hear that?" the hunter gasped. "Did you hear that?" Tom glanced toward the wall, eyes narrowing. "Tree came down," he said. "Wind knocked something loose." He didn't believe his own voice. The pressure pressed again. Not at the door. At the edges of the clearing. At the edge of the field inside the hunter where the bullet had once gone through a deer and taken something else with it. He looked from the wall to Tom's face. He didn't see a man. He saw the sick deer in his skin. He wrenched his wrist free with a strength born of fear and fever. His other hand closed around the knife. Tom reacted on instinct.
He grabbed for the nearest weapon. It was the hunter's rifle. He swung the barrel up between them just as the knife came down. The shot went off almost by itself. For a second, everything in the room paused, as if waiting to see which way the story would tip. The knife clattered to the floor. So did the hunter. He landed half-curled at the base of the hearth, below me. His eyes were wide, but they did not track. His shirt spread dark where the bullet had found its way home. Tom stared at him, horrified, the rifle still braced in both hands. "No," he whispered. "No, no, 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 no." The cabin went very quiet.
Outside, the wind went on with its business, indifferent. Inside, the only sounds were Tom's breathing and the quiet, inevitable work of blood. After a while, he dropped the rifle and fell to his knees beside his friend. "I told you to text me if you got lonely, you idiot," he said. "I didn't mean—" He didn't finish the sentence. He pressed his palm to the wound, the way the hunter had once pressed a gloved hand to my neck in the field. He begged the blood to stay. It didn't. Blood doesn't listen that way. Eventually, even Tom's pleading ran out. He sat back on his heels, staring at the body on the floor, and the hole in the door, and the snow drifting in around the edges. He looked up then, at me. For the first time that week, someone on two legs met my glass gaze and truly saw what was nailed there. "What happened to him?" Tom whispered. "What did you see?" Words reached my old wooden throat. I did not speak them. This was not my hunter anymore, not my story to tell him. I stayed still. I watched. He sat there in the quiet until the cold began to notice him. Then he moved, slow, numb, up onto his feet. He closed what was left of the door. He dragged a blanket from the bed and laid it over his friend's body. He did not look at me again. Hours later, other lights came. Headlights, red and blue flashes. Voices on radios. Boots on the porch. Questions. The language of aftermath. They took the hunter away under the blanket. They took the rifle. They left me on the wall. Now, when the cabin is empty again, the wind finds its usual paths. Mice reclaim the corners. Snow stacks in the same drifts. The field remembers nothing and everything at once. They will say it was an accident. They will say he got sick out there. Something in the meat. Something in his brain. His friend came back and found a man who wasn't himself anymore. A struggle. A gun. A shot. Tragic. Unavoidable. They will not talk about the thing that walked on hind legs at the edge of the trees, teeth snapping at air. They will not talk about the way my dead mouth dragged words out of wood to tell him what I could and what I could not name. They will say, he was hallucinating. He thought his friend was something else. They will be right. They will say nothing about the edge of the field inside a man, and what waits there when you drag something home you should have left for the coyotes. I remember the last breath I ever saw from him. It was not in this cabin. It was back in the field, the day he killed me. Before all this. Before the wrong deer. Before the week alone. Before the sickness chewed holes in his sense of safe and real. He stood over my body, steam from his own mouth and mine mixing in the cold. "You're a good buck," he said. "Big boy. Thank you." He crossed the edge of the field that day, believing he knew what hunted and what was hunted, what walked on 4 legs and what walked on 2. He was wrong. You think the line between those things is at the fence or at the cabin door or in the thickness of the trees. It isn't. It's inside you. At the edge of the field you carry around in your own skull. I hang over this mantle. I see only one room, but I remember the field. I remember the shape of hunger. I remember what waits. If you ever come here, if you unlock this door, if you stand on this rug and look up at me and ask, "What happened?" know this: I am only a head on a wall. I did nothing but watch. The rest was him, and the thing that learned to walk like him.
And that's the thing about hunger. It doesn't always wear teeth on the outside. Sometimes it learns your voice. Sometimes it borrows your face. Sometimes it just waits at the edge of the field you carry around in your skull until you give it a name you can't take back. If this one got under your skin, don't scrub too hard. Some stains are lessons. Next time, we step out of the woods and into a studio, a place with warm lights, practiced smiles, and a red bulb that clicks on like a warning. There's a man they call Mr. Evergreen, a gentle voice, a safe sweater, and a desk that's held his hands for so long it remembers his lies before he does. Mail comes in. Most of it is sweet. And then one plain envelope, no return address, neat block letters. And when he opens it, something familiar taps back. Join me for the next tale in our fun little anthology, Episode 24, Dear Mr. Evergreen. Keep your doors shut now. Keep your lights low. I'm Nora Vale. I'll see you at mail time.